Can everybody hear me? Perfect. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to what's going to be a very exciting event. I'm very grateful that you've all come today. My name is Tanis Boyachik. I'm chair of the Elections and Resolutions Committee, and we're about to start the EC Directors Debate. As anybody who checked their email about an hour ago would be aware, we're in a bit of an unusual situation this year, and while there will be more discussion of that in the AGM that follows this event, everybody should be aware that unfortunately voting for the EC Director positions and other votes that were scheduled to start tomorrow will not be taking place. They will be rescheduled to a time to be determined, and that is in order to ensure the integrity of the vote in light of new information that has come forward. So the ERC and the NEC have unanimously agreed to that course of action. More information will be coming to you on that in the coming days. And again, it will be addressed at the AGM, so I'd like to take that shocking news and move on for a moment. Again, I think we're here to listen to the EC directors, to make sure that members have a chance to understand the vision and positions of the people who they will be voting to represent them. There are 2 vacant positions on the NEC, so EC members, when voting opens, will be able to choose up to 2 members from these excellent candidates before me. And again, the point of this debate is to ensure that members are informed whenever those votes do take place. I'd like to, at this point, introduce the moderator for this event tonight. We've brought in Kathleen Connolly from the private sector. She's a professional facilitator who will be guiding us through this process and helping make sure that we stay on time, we stay respectful, and we get this done. Okay, so thank you very much. Kathleen, do you want to come up?
Yes. Thank you, Tanis. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Good evening. Kathleen Conley, as Tanis says, my job is to make sure we're on track and on time. Before I go any further, I want you to note that there is simultaneous interpretation services. We encourage you to speak the official language of your choice, all of you. The receivers are at the back of the room, le poste 1 en français.
Channel 1 in French and 2 in English.
Courage de parler la langue officielle de votre choix.
You can speak in the language of your choice, and you have headset at the back of the room.
2 is in English. So please feel free to speak the official language of your choice over the course of the evening. So we're going to begin with the candidate debate for the EC director. We've got a total of 1 hour, and here's how we're going to proceed. Each of the 5 candidates is going to have 3 minutes for opening statements. We've kind of randomly selected the speaking order. I think you guys have been asked to seat in the order that we've randomly selected. Perfect, okay. So they're going to have 3 minutes for opening statements. We're then going to go to questions and ask them to answer questions, and I'll explain how we'll proceed with that in a moment. And then at the end, they're going to be given 2 minutes each for closing statements. Donc, ils vont avoir chacun 2 minutes à la fin.
So they will have 2 minutes in the end.
Voilà, je vous donne des consignes.
I'm giving you precise instructions for the questions.
And if you do write them over the course of our time together, I'm going to ask you to hand them to Pierre. I don't know if everyone can see Pierre here behind the posts. All right, hand them over to Pierre. But you can also submit them via a forum on the AGM portion of the CAPE website. All right? And I guess Ben will be watching for those questions. Thank you, Ben. All right, so you've got 2 ways of submitting questions, but I will not be taking sort of oral questions, okay? They've got to come in writing, either to Pierre or via the website, and Ben's going to pick those up. Here are the rules for the questions, okay? Il y a des règles par rapport.
So we have rules for the questions.
Relevant to all candidates. They must be expressed, obviously, respectfully and contribute to respectful discussion. And here I don't just mean language. I do, of course, mean language also. But we have to avoid things like unproven allegations or making false or defamatory statements, all right? So we remain very respectful. The questions, of course, have to be legible, if you're submitting them in writing especially, and intelligible. They have to be submitted in either English or French. So we're not taking questions in Spanish tonight, right, Pierre? Pas de questions en espagnol.
No questions in English. They have to be in one of the 2 official languages.
We're not going to ask the same question more than once. So if a question's already been answered, we're not going to resubmit it to our candidates. The ERC is going to review to make sure that the questions meet the criteria that I just went over. Okay, and then they'll be handing me the questions. Moi, je vais les lire dans la...
I will be reading them in the language I'll be.
And you'll see that when we get to the questions, I'll rotate the speaking order every time. So candidates, you're going to have only 60 seconds to answer the questions, okay? Now, we've got a great timer that's really going to help us all manage our time so that we're not here till late tonight. And so there's no point continuing past candidates the time that, when that timer goes out, if I stand up and stand here in the front, it's because you've definitely ignored my cue and the timer cue, all right? So I'll ask you to please respect the time allotted. Reminder to everyone, les cellulaires, Blackberries,
Cells, BlackBerry.
mode so they don't disrupt our proceedings. Okay, so we're going to begin with that order that we sort of randomly selected for the opening statements. So again, a reminder, vous avez 3 minutes, les candidats.
You have 3 minutes each.
And the order that was given to me, randomly selected, was Katrina Vermeeren first, and then Miranda Dick, and then Greg Phillips, and then Shelley Hovey, and then finally Doran Petria. All right. Okay, so Katrina, over to you. Yeah, so you just press on this little button here if you want to speak from there. There you go.
Hello everyone. Je suis tellement nerveuse parce que c'est la première.
I'm a bit nervous because this is the first time I'm speaking in public to a big group like that. And it was a surprise that I would be the first one to speak. So,
Why did I seek to be before you and go through this frightening experience? At the time, we were looking for persons to put their name forward to be a member of this national committee. And I was looking across our border at 2 candidates in the American election and thinking to myself, why are there not better choices or more choices? And I think someone said to me, well, it's because we need more good people to go in front of the microphone. So here I am. For me, what I would like to see in our national committee is good judgment, respect, orientation to problem solving, quelqu'un qui est pragmatique, qui peut faire.
somebody that is pragmatic, that can work with others in good collaboration. What else? Somebody conscientious.
Pour moi, c'est
I don't speak French very well, but it's important that members do speak French and can work in French. And I also wear glasses. Somebody who is productive.
And en français, on dit harcèlement. I think bullying is very bad in the workplace, and I'd like to see it not in my union. The same would be for misinformation. All of this kind of causes damage to the association. Et je cherche un syndicat.
And I'm looking for a more professional union. Less damages. I did the right dance, a few notes. Oh, well, I have 45 seconds left.
Forward that we have an agreement, and I think it's very important that we have a functioning union. I'm involved through my local union at INAC or ANSI, or I'm not sure, we might have changed the name again, changed it a lot. And I'm also involved in the Health and Safety Committee, the National Committee. I'm a CAPE member for that. And I just really appreciate all of you coming here today. This is democracy. I like seeing democracy in my syndicat, donc je suis très fière.
So I'm very happy to be here tonight. C'est tout, merci.
Rina. Thank you. Okay, Miranda, over to you. Do you want to come to the podium or? It's up to you.
No, I'm
Okay.
I'm okay here. Thank you very much. If you would indulge me for a moment, before I start, I wanted to ask that we take a moment to acknowledge the land that we're on, the Algonquin territory, and to honor the Algonquin people who've been living and working here on this land forever. Just a moment to step outside of our inner politics and to be mindful of this long-standing history of the land and the process of colonialism. And perhaps if this is something we were interested in moving forward as a union, we could extend an invitation to an elder to participate in our national meetings. And as a sign of recognition for our members, our union members who also have Indigenous nationhood, and also broadly in our respect for Indigenous territories and for rights. So I'll just pause for maybe like 2 seconds because I only have 2 minutes left. Thank you. I assume that this will be a very difficult evening for most of us, and I thought perhaps we could just keep this mindfulness with us to help center us and to make sure that we're focusing on our true priorities. So my name is Miranda Dick. I'm very happy to be here with you. I found that many people have this image of me, but very few people have the full picture, so I'd really like to fix that tonight and moving forward. I am a director of my local executive, 512, at Health Canada and FAC. I'm a senior policy analyst at Health Canada, previously at the Public Health Agency of Canada. I've had just the absolute pleasure of working with members, working with incredible colleagues all across the federal government from different departments, not only in the NCR, but also outside in the regions. I stand before you, I sit before you today, rooted in 3 priorities: accountability, transparency, and service to members. For more information, I have a website, thirsty4justice.com, and if you hit /issues, that should give you the rundown. I am asking for your vote for one of these 2 positions so that I could be more involved in service to our members. And I really believe that we need to refocus onto the needs of our members. I think too often we've been looking at moving forward personal priorities of our administration. We really need to look at making direct impacts for the members across the unions, be this in collective bargaining, in supporting our LROs or our stewards, and really getting down to the key issues before we take on any side projects. I look forward to speaking a bit more to this with the questions and with my closing. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and speak to you all.
Thank you very much, Miranda. Greg, over to you, sir.
I always like being different, so I'll stand up. Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Greg Phillips. I am the president of the local Statistics Canada, the biggest local at the Cape. And I was already an administrator of NEC at the National Executive Committee.
With a long speech, you all have had the opportunity to read my bio. It's posted on the Cape website. But in case you haven't availed yourself of that opportunity, I'll just provide some of the highlights here. My experience, in 2005, I was appointed a director at the Statistics Canada Local Executive Committee. From 2009 to 2015, I was on the National Executive Committee as an EC director. I'm the president at Stats Can. We have approximately 2,200 ECs, and I've been the local president there since 2010. I represent the ECs at Stats Can on a number of consultation committees. I'm co-chair with the assistant chief statistician on the Labor Management Consultation Committee. And management has awarded me the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal for my efforts in union activities. By the time this election is over, there will only be a year left in the mandate for the current NEC. Consequently, there's not a whole lot of time to set out a long list of goals. So my modest agenda is to try and refocus the efforts of the association on protecting members' rights and finalize the collective bargaining process. I've spent the last 5 to 6 years protecting members' rights in my workplace, consultation committees, Informal conflict management, which is one of my specialties. Information sessions, and at my meetings at StatsCan, it's not uncommon to have 180 to 200 members attend. I was the co-chair of the WFA committee at StatsCan, and we had one of the best-run WFA committees out of the entire government. So I stand behind my experience and my knowledge. I stand up for what I believe in, and I have the courage to speak my mind when necessary and appropriate, and I'm here tonight seeking your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg. Shelley, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. I'll apologize ahead of time. I'm not a great public speaker, but I do want to give you an idea of why I decided to run. I'll start with a little bit of my experience. So currently I'm the president of Local 520 at Natural Resources Canada. Although the majority of my experience from the start is in occupational health and safety, I kind of branched out from there into representational work. I am trained by the union when a labor relations officer isn't able to attend in things such as disciplinary hearings and duty to accommodate and whatnot. So I work very hand in hand with our current labor relations officer. I decided to put my hat in the ring because it's been a hard, tough year for this union. And I think we've kind of lost track of what the basis of a union is, and it's to be united together and to, put your foot forward as one and fight the good fight together. So I'd like your vote and to have that chance to, for that year as that position on the National Executive Committee so that we can finally move forward in a positive and progressive manner and, start reinvesting back in this union and in the members. That's basically all I have to say.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Shelley. Doran, over to you.
All right. Bonsoir tout le monde. Merci d'être venu.
Good evening, one and all. Thank you for coming.
Here. In a nutshell, I'm here because I think that we need to go back to the progressive agenda that we have been pushing for the last 2 years, and we need to stop the infighting. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have new masters. They are sort of shinier and prettier and say nicer things than the previous ones. But push comes to shove, our employer is the same. And I am worried and somewhat disgusted by the fact that this association has wasted the better part of the last year on infighting instead of focusing on bargaining and focusing on solidarity. And solidarity doesn't just mean looking out for other members. It doesn't mean that, but it also means forging links and being progressive and getting together with other unions in the public service. As I'm sure pretty much everybody knows, the political winds tend to shift fairly quickly. And just because currently, in Canada, it sounds like we're in a very nice and progressive place, doesn't mean that things can turn on a dime again. And unlike, people who happen to be on good terms with management, I used to be local president at ESDC during workforce adjustment. And in that case, things were not working nicely. I did not have the luxury of being able to take off from my job while I was being affected as well in order to go on consultation committees or work with senior management. And that's where we need to have a strong union. And to me, that means that we need to have a strong union who is there with the other public service unions who can act in unison with them, be united, and present a united front when it comes to the employer. And if you need to wonder about that, really just look at the fact that it's been years. We still don't have a collective agreement. That's not because we are not ready to sign. It's because the employer is still pushing the same thing. And ask yourself, what has changed in terms of like sick leave or other takeaways that we're being asked to put on the table? So I'm asking you to vote for me so I can continue to support the current president's agenda and that we can continue to push that unity both inside and outside. Merci.
Thank you very much. All right, so let's go to the questions that are coming in and give you an opportunity to answer the questions. And so, as I mentioned, we're going to start, maybe we'll start again with you, if you don't mind, Katrina. And then at the next round of questions, we'll start with the next candidate and the next candidate and the next candidate, okay? We'll alternate the start, all right? So a reminder, this is a good time if you want to submit questions that you remember. There's Pierre here at the beginning of the room, at the front of the room. C'est-à-dire, si vous avez des questions.
If you have questions, please give them in writing to Pierre.
So first question, again, I'll ask you to be the first one to answer. And remember that you have no more than 60 seconds to answer, all right? So let's try to get through as many. Don't feel you have to speak 60 seconds, all right? Let's try to get through as many questions as we can. Okay, première question.
First question.
On the recent events involving the attempt to recall our president, how would you have handled this issue had you been a member of the NEC? How would you have handled this issue had you been a member of the NEC?
Hello, everyone. Nervous again. I'm not happy with what happened. I think that there were over 100 concerns raised, and I think there was really one that turned out to be somewhat of a concern, and I felt very bad for Emmanuel about that entire experience. Pour moi, je préfère.
And I would prefer look to the future.
To answer it, if I were on the committee and that happened again, I think we would have to take a moment and reconsider what the union is about, and maybe not make the same mistake.
Okay, thank you very much. Miranda, over to you. 60 seconds.
Thank you. It's a very, very fantastic question, very challenging question. So had I been on the NEC, I would have worked collaboratively with the other members. I would have recommended that the president take suspension with leave during the time of the investigation. I would have promoted accountability, transparency. I would have pushed to expedite the investigation wherever possible. I think that a lot of what happened over the summer was very unfortunate and could have been easily avoided. I would have allowed the free discussion of members of, for instance, information that's already in the public domain, so that some of what happened probably could have been easily avoided. Our members could have had faith in the process and let it play out. I think that it's unfortunate that the administration was so concerned with things like tweets. My focus is squarely on matters that are truly important, collective agreements, and I don't think that we want leaders that can
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Miranda. Greg, over to you. Same question.
It's an interesting question because none of us except the NEC that are in this room actually have the full picture. We as members, because I wasn't on the NEC, we don't have the full picture. We don't know everything that was discussed at the NEC table. A lot of it was discussed in camera. So to say how I'd handle it and what my views are is a little bit like playing armchair quarterback when not having the full picture. So it's really hard to say how would I handle it and what my views are. I do think part of the problem with the process was how long it took. I think a lot of the things on the Twitter and everything else that was going on would never have happened if it was a much faster process. If the investigation had happened right away, if everybody had participated right away, and if the report could have been out within a month or two, then the Twitter and all these other things that are going on would never have been able to get up the amount of steam that it did get. And I know that it was only until the last months that it hit the newspaper.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Over to you, Shelley.
I'm not quite sure how to answer that, except that I suppose if I was on the NAIC at the time, I would have abided by the Constitution and bylaws that we were supposed to and have left it in just as I did through the whole process. I never involved myself in it because it was in the hands of an investigative team, and we weren't supposed to involve ourselves, and we were supposed to wait till the end. So I respected that and respected the process and the fact that it was, under control. So I don't know if I would do really anything any different.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you, Shelley. Dorian, over to you.
Okay, so first of all, as somebody who had the misfortune of being dragged through the same sort of process, so where the disciplinary bylaw was used to essentially settle political and personal scores in the union, I have wholehearted sympathy for this ordeal that Emmanuel has been through. If I had been on the neck to begin with, and also as chair of the Constitution and Bylaws Committee, I would have made sure that the NEC didn't drag its feet and that we would have fixed Bylaw 5. This has been on the horizon for years. We know that the way that the complaints process is set up, it allows abuse by people who can complain about 101 things and hope that something sticks, and then there's no way to get out of it. Secondly, I would have spoken very strongly against the NEC prejudicing the outcome of the investigation. I cannot believe that the NEC suspended the president prior to a recall vote. It's crazy in terms of natural justice. So I would have spoken strongly against that.
Okay, thank you very much, Dorian. Okay, I'm going to read the next question, and we're going to start with Miranda and then keep going in that same sequence. So here's the question. How do you feel that CAPE should be involved with other public service unions as well as the broader labour movement? What issues are most pressing to tackle in solidarity with other unions, and how? Miranda.
Okay, thank you very much. So as I touched on, I think that first we need to prioritize the needs of our membership. So we're talking about Phoenix collective bargaining and the employer's attempt to exclude some of our members. But that said, I am an activist at heart. That's how I got involved here. And I do believe in union solidarity. I would say that in terms of working together, there's a lot of fantastic movement on mental health, occupational health, and safety. We really need to move forward collectively on bargaining to make sure that no concessions are made that we have to later accept. I think there's a lot to be gained there as long as we make sure that it's to our benefit. Essentially, I believe when other unions are strong, we are stronger for it as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Greg, over to you.
We absolutely have to work with other unions. I think we have to concentrate on our strengths, and other unions concentrate on their strengths. In our union, we're a bunch of analysts. Translations is a type of analyst. ECs are analysts. And I think our strength is with that. PSAC has a larger group. They have a larger body. They have a larger budget. So I would look at a division of labor, and in our case, we excel at analytical work, so we should focus our efforts with them by a division of labor. Because if we're all beating on the same drum or going in the same direction, we should all go in the same direction, but I'm just saying we could specialize in an analytical approach to it. During WFA, we came out with an analytical report that predicted the number of job losses. I think we were off by maybe 5%. When everybody else was laughing. That's the sort of information that we should, how we can work with them.
Thank you, Greg. Shelley.
I think at this point in time, it's essential that all us unions, all us bargaining agents, stand together and work together. We're all in the same boat when it comes to sick leave, Phoenix, bargaining. We all essentially, have the same goals in mind, and if we do it together, and we help one another, and we support one another, and we stand a united front, then hopefully it'll be for the better for all of us. So I think it's incredibly important, and I think we're already doing that now. I think a lot of us. As a local president, I work with all the different bargaining agents all the time, at a local level. So definitely we should be doing it at a national level.
Shelley, Dorian.
Donc, de mon point de vue,
as far as I'm concerned, what I can see as far as solidarity is more coordination. I feel that as far as negotiations are concerned, we should coordinate our actions with other unions.
my initial involvement in CAPE, the very first meeting I went to, I remember being taken aback when I realized that historically, CAPE's approach was to essentially ride on the coattails of other public service unions in terms of getting them to do the hard bargaining, and then we'll say we want what they want because we're analysts and we're special. I disagree with Greg. Division of labor is still division, which means that we are divided when it comes to standing up to the employer. So one of the things that we should do in order to have more solidarity is I think we need to improve our defense fund. We need to be able to stand up and...
Thank you, Doran. Katrina.
Okay. I believe that CAPE should remain independent, but cooperative with the other unions. You ask what issues of solidarity, I would name Phoenix. If any of you know what my last 2 months were like without pay, you can definitely relate to that. It's stressful, and also, I think a focus on la santé mentale, focus on on doit négocier.
We have to negotiate an agreement. Some members have not been paid, but in the meantime, we don't have a policy against harassment.
An anti-bullying policy. These are things that we can work on together. Thank you.
Merci, Katrina. Greg, we're going to start with you for the next question, which is, what changes would you make to the CAPE Constitution?
I think this is something Doran and I can completely agree on. I think there's a lot of changes that need to be made to the Constitution. I know Doran's been working on it. What changes? Oof. It needs to be clear. I don't think the president should have unilateral ability to interpret the Constitution however he or she wishes. I think it should be done through a consultation body. I don't believe, I think that they should have some HR practices enshrined in an HR committee, which is going to be on the agenda tonight. It's on the agenda, it's going to be voted on. I think we need an HR committee. It's from page 1 to the end, I think we need to rework our Constitution. It's too vague in some areas. I don't know, it's hard to say. I haven't sat down, it's a job full time, and I know there's a committee that's working on it, but I do support changes to the Constitution.
Okay. Shelley.
I definitely support changes to the current Constitution bylaws. They're quite outdated from what I understand. I haven't personally sat down and read them all, but from what I understand, a lot of them are quite outdated and they're not in line with the current way of, the way we work today. So I am very supportive of that, and I know there is a committee working on them now from what I understand, and I do support that change. I think it'll be a great benefit to this union, for sure.
Okay. Doran, over to you.
That's a great question. I'm glad to hear it. First of all, as chair of the Constitutional Bylaws Committee, what I would want to do is I will want to engage and consult the members more readily, more regularly, and more consistently in terms of what they want to see as far as the Constitution bylaws go. Does it need to be fixed? Yes. What would I fix? Well, first of all, I would definitely fix this whole complaints bylaw with bylaw 5 and the way things go. It's a mess. Secondly, I would really like to work towards having more plain language in our Constitution. Honestly, I think the fact that we are analysts means that we tend to sometimes get a little bit overly wordy and overly complicated, and it should be simpler and easier and speak more readily to members.
Thank you, Doran. Katrina.
I agree with Dorian. I'm always in favor of plain language. My partner is a lawyer, and let me tell you, I agree with you on that one. Yes, the Constitution needs to be reviewed and updated, and I think that is a process that will happen. I would like to see it not be a trench of long-term discussion and frustration. I think that rather than looking toward the Constitution, we need to look a little bit more externally, less internally, and focus on our future, focus on getting an agreement, and working together. But yeah, it does need to be reviewed. It does need to be updated. I agree.
Okay, thank you. Miranda.
Thank you. Before talking about how to change the Constitution, I'd just like to put it out there that, just to remind us that the Constitution I look at it as a covenant. It's how we operationalize our democracy. It needs to be taken seriously, so any violations of it need to be taken equally seriously. So I'm very pleased that we're moving forward with the review. I'd like to ensure that we're building in more transparency, more accountability to our members. It should be a holistic review. We should have respect for members built in, so have some supporting policy pieces. So a policy stating that all members are entitled to equal concern, to respect, ramping up the democratic voting, the requirement for voting to be fair, unbiased, private, elections are fair. And then if we could build in a piece on fair representation, so just a formal statement to support the Constitution about how we're going to meet our statutory duties under the public service relations.
Okay, thank you, Miranda. So Shelley, we're going to ask you to answer this question first. This question, what do you think are the most pressing challenges facing young public servants? How should CAPE respond to these challenges, and will you defend the interests of young members on the NEC?
I think a lot of the challenges for the younger generation coming in right now is from when, us old folks started, the government, the way the government is running itself is very, very different. So they're not getting some of the grandfathered benefits that we had when we first started. So I think that's already, difficult for them. Not just for the young, but for anybody. I would always be your voice and your advocate on the NAIC, and would do everything in my power to support and to, help in whatever initiative that needed to be dealt with, especially for the new generation coming in, but really for anybody.
Okay, thank you. Doran.
I think that in terms of young members of CAPE, one of their biggest challenges internally is honestly lack of solidarity. I'm disappointed that the motion to have a progressive dues structure had failed. To me, that's a sign that those of us who happen to have moved up the ranks don't necessarily understand where the younger members who are more junior positions stand. As far as going forward, one of the things that solidarity goes both ways. I mean, today's young members will be tomorrow's full-time members, and hopefully will be the retirees someday. And really, I think the solution is still solidarity. So I would fight for young members to have a voice. I would fight as much as possible for progressive dues. And I am also concerned about making sure that young members are represented properly.
Thank you. Katrina.
Got to be quick. Pressing challenges. I think second language training is really difficult to get if you're a young member. I find that really frustrating because you are going to be here the longest and you get the least dollars for second language training, and that really is not functioning. I, for a long time, have been disappointed with the recent changes that the pensions have been changed, and our employers are not putting as much money toward our pensions as they were. So although older members are less affected, it's the younger members that are more affected. And I think moving forward, I'd like to connect more with younger members by having a more updated website, online referendums, and just getting a little bit more technical.
All right. Good. Thank you. Let's go ahead.
Thank you. Kind of to follow up on that, I am very interested in modernizing and engaging and finding new and innovative ways to reach our youth, our young members. The first step, I would say, would be to actually ask them what the issues are, because I know that I had some, myself and some members had some serious questions about the research behind some of the progressive due structure, and I'd actually like to see and hear from them what are their top priorities. Broadly speaking, I would assume that, just like for all members, expedited resolution of Phoenix pay issues would be top of mind. Make sure that we have support for our labor relations officers, for our stewards, so that we can be fully addressing the issues facing our members. Essentially, just focusing on the needs of our members and making sure that we have a union that works for everyone, not just the few people at the top.
Thank you, Miranda. Greg.
I think one of the biggest issues facing young members is the years of budget cuts that the government's undergone. Everything's been very structured, very formalized. I know at StatsCan there's a lot of, when I was at the beginning of my career, there's a lot more money flowing around, so there was a lot more freedom for job enrichment. Now a lot of that job enrichment's been stripped away because of budget cuts, and everything has to be done quickly and fast. A lot of departments don't have orientation programs for new employees. So new employees come in, they don't know their way around the department, they don't know where to go for help, they don't know where to get it. One of the things I've been promoting at Stats is mentorship. Second language training is definitely a challenge. Less money for training as a result of the budget cuts and everything, all the years of taking that away. I mean, they're after sick leave now, pensions. So a lot of the benefits that we had for the majority of our careers, the young people don't have, so we have to look at protecting them.
All right, thank you. So, Doran, we'll start with you on this next question. Voici la prochaine question.
Here is the next question.
On CAPE engaging in political activity, specifically critiquing federal policies and the federal budget.
Oh dear. You mean a union should possibly not critique the employer's position, especially when it comes to what they have to say about money? So I think that kind of covers it. I think we do need to get out there and participate in the political discourse. That's the whole point of having, I think, solidarity as well. Interestingly, I know that we have a lot of members say, no, we're supposed to stay neutral on the sidelines. We are not supposed to get involved. I find it funny that as I was listening to the radio this morning, and you have the commissioner of the RCMP lobbying the government very, strongly about political things, about what he would want to see and being able to do wiretaps. Unions need to be able to get out there and put out our political position as well in order to protect our members.
Okay, thank you very much. Katrina.
That's a question I didn't think would come up. Yeah, I think I'm okay with the union reviewing the budget and having some things to say about it. It definitely affects us just as much as it affects other Canadians, and there are a number of groups across the country. I think my mom's tennis club had some opinions about the recent budget, so I'm very okay with that. Again, I think nous avons besoin d'un syndicat qui est...
We need a union that is more pragmatic, cooperative, managers that are reaching consensus at the board level or at the council level.
Je préfère à penser.
I prefer looking to the future rather than turning around.
Thank you. This is actually something that I was thinking of when the last budget came out, because I think it was Emmanuel who tweeted out our analysis of the budget, and I was just at that time quite surprised that it was the president sending it and that, like, her level of involvement. But the thing that struck me is that so much falls to our very few people in the office, our very few executive members, when really we have a really unique, skilled membership. and we could be drawing on these resources. So many of us are already doing budget reviews, are already doing so much policy work and so much statistical analysis at StatsCan. And what we could really do is start drawing on those to create some opportunities for our members to contribute meaningfully. Like that would really just bring in line our administration in sync with our membership. We have it, yet let's use it. There's so many skilled members out there who could really help drive this work forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda. Greg.
I'm all for political criticism, but I think we need to focus in on our strengths. As I said before, our strength is the analytical approach. And I think any kind of political criticism has to come from that, a calm, cool, reserved, but fact-based, analytical-based argument. So, such as the analysis we did with the GDP on the last the WFA numbers, I think that we have a lot of policy people here that could criticize in a calm, cool, and rational way policies of the government. And I think what we need to do is focus in on our strengths. We're a professional union, we're full of professionals, and we need to tap that reserve and support the other unions with their road. I'm not saying we disparage them or we speak out against them, but we choose our own way. And I think the strength within our membership is the analytical approach, and that's what resonates with the population.
Thank you. Shelley.
Isn't that what a union was first created for? To stand together and unite together against their employer and demand social justice? It just happens to be our employer happens to be the federal government. So yeah, I think it's incredibly important. If we don't speak up, we're not going to get what we deserve. We're not going to get what we need. And the cards will always be in their hands. So I'm a big proponent for standing up. I think it can be done respectfully, but it needs to be done in strength. And we need to be united as one and kind of get back to the old grassroots way of doing it.
Okay, so we're running out of time. Last question for all of you here. We'll start with you, Katrina. In building the strength of the union, what groups or associations would you include and why?
Building the strength of the union?
In building the strength of the union, what groups or associations would you include and why?
I don't know. I think I definitely agree with working with other unions. We're not the first to be in the position to be struggling with our employer to get even anything reasonable to the table. So there are definitely unions that have a lot more experience than we do in negotiations, and definitely more dollars. So cooperating with them in many ways, I'm very positive about. At the same time, I would say that, I'm very proud that we are a union of professional employees, and I do like to remain independent.
Okay, good, thank you. Miranda.
Okay, thank you. So I think there's a lot of other resources that we can tap into. First and foremost, just making sure that we have our priorities set, that we're meeting the needs of our membership. In terms of, supporting our bargaining team, working with other unions. I'm part of the Mobilization and Joint Action Committee. I'm also very involved in TUNIs from the Inter-Union Action. So I know that we gain a great strength from working in solidarity with other unions. I'd also like to say, this kind of maybe sounds out of sync, but we should also be building collaborative relationships with our senior management just to ease the day-to-day for our members. So really supporting our locals, working with what we have, working with our members in the development of collaborative and productive relationships with senior management to ensure the best outcomes for our members. That in tangent with really building up our labor relations officers, our stewards. It's really all about the members, so whatever it takes, working with other.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Greg, over to you.
It's an interesting question. One of the things when I was on the National Executive Committee last time, a couple of years ago, we had the CLC come to give us a presentation to see what they could offer. I think it was one of my recommendations. I can't remember, but I remember I fully supported to hear from the CLC, and I think it's on the agenda for tonight to see what they have to say. what they can offer us. I think that's something we need to keep an open mind about and see if that's something we need to consider. I think we need to be involved with other national unions and make sure that there's that solidarity amongst big unions. One of the stones I don't think we've turned yet, or I might be mistaken, but I don't know about, is the UK. The UK has a similar government structure to us. Have we ever reached out to the economists over there? Are they unionized in their government employees? The United States is just south. Maybe internationally we could reach out to some other unions that have TRs or ECs and see how they handled their government with certain things, and maybe we could find out some international bridges too.
Okay, thank you. Shelley?
Well, I think this union needs to start to learn how to work with one another first. And once we've achieved that, then I think we need to continue to work with the other unions. Because I'm not sure of any other associations that I can think of, but I definitely think we need to start within and then continue, working with the others.
Okay, thank you. Dorian?
Could you repeat that question, please?
Let me repeat the question for you. In building the strength of the union, what groups or associations would you include and why?
Okay, the pithy answer is all of them, because solidarity. So, to expand on that, this to me is interesting because it sets up the idea of working with other people in terms of which group here, which group over there, which group, and it still seems this weirdly divided way of looking at the world. Like, we're one group, they're this group, we should maybe work with those, but not the other ones. I think why I'm here is because I see us as being part of a greater whole. I think we're here, I'm a public servant because I want to work for the benefit of Canadians. I want to work for the benefit of really people rather than special interests. So really, we work with everybody. That's what will make us stronger.
Okay. So we're going to move on to closing statements now. Again, we randomly picked order here. It's going to be Miranda, Katrina, Doran, Shelley, and Greg. So again, over to you, Miranda. 2 minutes closing statement.
Thank you. I believe we need to refocus on the needs of our members. We need to focus on meeting the needs of the membership long before personal ambitions of various political officials even become a consideration. We need a formal statement on how we will meet our statutory duties under the Public Service Labor Relations Act, including a binding operational policy to ensure monies are used first to meet a higher standard of representation before non-essential projects are considered. We need a union that works for everyone, not just the leadership. For example, this year, $1 million was diverted to the Defense Fund, but to date, there's still no approved terms of reference for the use or the expenditure. I have serious misgivings about expenditures that are made under this ambiguous fund, particularly when critical members for services, like adequately resourced labor relations, continues to suffer. We need to drive for an expedited resolution of Phoenix pay issues, support our members who continue to experience problems. This is a very basic rate, or very basic right to be paid for the work that they've done. We need to support our bargaining team. We need to hire an experienced lead negotiator. We need to support our labor relations officers, our stewards, to make sure that we're meeting this basic requirement in the service that we provide to our members. We should launch an awareness campaign for our members to oppose any attempts by the employer to exclude members from the union through their interpretation of work by ECs or through any other backhanded methods. We need to ensure that our members have the resources they need to not only enjoy their rights for mental health, for occupational work and safety, but to know when these rights are being violated and what recourse they have. We need to build trust with them so that they'll know that their union is there for them when they need it. We need to know that our union is working for us, not just the few at the top. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Katrina.
Bam. I'll be quick. Okay, je suis analyste politique.
I am a political analyst. and I am also a master's student in political studies.
Since these are closing statements, I'll say again, I'm just happy to be here as a candidate. I didn't know who would come forward, and I think these people are excellent people. I believe in cooperation and consensus and moving forward and not getting stuck. I think we've been stuck for a little while. At the same time, I think we have a great negotiating team, and nous devons négocier.
We have to negotiate an agreement.
Thank you to all of you for coming out. And thank you for participating. And thank you in advance for voting. I know it's not tonight, but this is what makes us stronger. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I have met my fellow candidates at some earlier meetings, and I really feel that you're in good hands. So thank you again for coming. And if you do feel like voting for me, I'll accept your vote.
Okay, thank you, Katrina. Doran, over to you.
Donc, ouais, pour faire l'écho de...
To echo what Catherine is saying, thank you very much to you all for being here tonight, and thank you to all of you who will be voting. I'm here because I wanted to be a decisive voice in favor of solidarity. However, in Cape, we have to work with other unions.
Fear in terms of figuring out what's going on and what thing people are doing, and there have been finger pointing, recriminations, and all kinds of unsavory things going on in our union. And I think that if you vote for me, I will help to bring it back to having a progressive project, which is to build a union that works well with others, that looks out for all of our members. For example, I ran out of time when it came to our younger members, but definitely we don't want to go down the road of having two-track benefits or two-track pensions for younger members. That's something that it would be key in my view. And we need to tone it down, take it easy, change the things that we can change, accept the things that we cannot, and hopefully have the wisdom to tell the difference. And if you vote for me, I promise that I will do my utmost to start with the latter one of those, which is know the wisdom to tell the difference between things that we can and cannot change. So thank you for being here. Bonsoir.
Merci. Shelley, à vous la parole.
Shelley, the floor is yours.
To get back to the business of being a strong, united union, I'd like us to move forward positively, especially after this very long and difficult year. I'd like us to move forward and reinvest back not only into the members right now, but for the members for the future. We can only do that if we work together, and I would like to be your voice, on the committee, and I'd like to bring my experience to the table and gain some more. And I'd really appreciate your vote in taking that step forward with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Greg.
As I started out at the beginning saying that there's only a year left in the mandate of the National Executive Committee, it's not a whole lot of time, but there is some time. But I think where I bring to the table is my experience on the NEC. The National Executive Committee has certain procedures and ways of doing things, and the way I feel is you need a candidate who can hit the ground running, because they don't have the time. They have to catch up with what the NEC's done. They have to figure out what their place in it is, and they have to be able to have the experience and the knowledge of what's happened in the past, what's worked, and someone who can actually get started in being effective right away. And that's what I can bring to the table because I've been on the National Executive Committee. I also have one of the largest locals, or the largest local. So I have the grassroots knowledge, but I also have the historical knowledge of how the National Executive Committee runs. I know what I'm in store for, and I've decided to step up and do it again. So I am a firm believer in labor relations, and I think one of the things that we need to focus in on is making sure that when an employee or a member has concerns in the workplace, that a labor relations officer is there fast and answering their questions, or at least letting the member know when they can get help. One of the things I've noticed over the years that's been slipping is the speed in which a member can get a reply. And that's one of the things that I want to make sure that is fixed, is that if you're in trouble in the workplace, someone in the national office is there to answer your questions and alleviate some of that fear that you may have in the workplace about whatever your situation is. Number one, you're paying dues every month, and if you're in an urgent situation, you should expect to have someone on the other end of the phone or at the other end of a keyboard and answering your call. And I think that's we're distracted by a number of things, but I think that's where we need to refocus our efforts.
Good. Thank you, Greg. Okay. So before we thank our candidates, just a few little reminders. Voting period will be announced. You can vote for up to 2 candidates. The CAPE website includes information on the candidates, and the video of the debate will be available on the CAPE YouTube channel in a few days. All right, so a few little reminders there. S'il vous plaît, joignez-vous à moi afin de remercier les candidats.
Please join me to thank the candidates.
All right, you may take your seats. Good. Oui.
Moi, je m'appelle Katrina.
My name is Katrina Vermans. It's too difficult for me. Katrina Vermans. Could you repeat your names?
Yes, I'm Miranda Dick from Health Canada.
Thank you.
Miranda Dick de Santé, Greg Phillips de Statistique Canada, Shirley Hovey est présidente de la section locale de Ressources naturelles Canada, Doreen Petrius.
And this information is all.
Toute cette information figure sur le site web. Merci encore.